Hey, it's Shiloh Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Shiloh Social Studies. So the last chapter, the last part of chapter 16 that we went over should have just been a review from everything that we covered in chapter 15, that division, that fracture of the United States of America, and what all led up to this moment right here. This is a picture right here of Fort Sumter. This is a painting of what the Battle of Fort Sumter, the first battle of the Civil War, was said to have looked like. Fort Sumter is an island fort. It's right in the middle of Charleston Harbor. It's a really neat place to go to. It's still standing today. It's not as tall as it used to be. It used to be like 3 stories tall and had cannons all around. But if you go there today in Charleston, you'll see lots of big cannon holes in the side of it. You'll even see pieces on the ground. You'll see like cannonballs in the water. I mean, it's really neat to go to and see. So the Battle of Fort Sumter. So right here, this little part of this chapter right here is going to be important battles of the Civil War. Here's the first one, the Battle of Fort Sumter in April of 1861. Why? It's because of its location. It is known as the first battle of the Civil War, and it really shows President Lincoln that the South is willing to fight for federal property. When Lincoln is elected in 1860, he says he is going to protect federal property, armories, and forts in the southern part of the United States, that Confederacy that broke off. So now you have P.G.T. Beauregard. He's the general who leads the Confederate Army against the bombing of Fort Sumter. Good thing about Fort Sumter is there's no casualties. Nobody dies. I think, if I remember correctly, there was only like 30 people, 30 Union soldiers on Fort Sumter when it got bombarded by the Confederacy. So no casualties, but the first battle of the Civil War goes to the Confederates, and it's all because of the location, right smack dab in the middle of Charleston Harbor. That means you control everything that comes in and out of South Carolina. And if you were the Confederacy, you wanted that bad. The next battle that we're going to cover here is going to be the first battle of Bull Run, or the Battle of Manassas. This happens in July of 1861. This is another Confederate victory. What is the big deal about the Battle of Bull Run? The idea of the Battle of Bull Run is that it's the first major battle of this war, the first major battle that has major casualties. Something you have to understand about the Civil War is that there were over 10,500 engagements between the North and the South in 4 years. Engagements, skirmishes, gunfire. This is the first big one. It's another Confederate victory. You have right there the casualties, almost 3,000 Union soldiers to about 1,750 Confederate soldiers. What does this show Lincoln and the world? I mean, really, this shows them that, hey, the South is not going to be a pushover. The North was like, hey, we have all the advantages, more people, more gunpowder, more money, we have everything. This war should be over in no time. However, this battle right here shows the North, we are going to be in trouble. This war is not going to be a short war. The third battle we're going to cover here is the Battle of Shiloh in April of 1862. The Battle of Shiloh is what we call the first deadliest day in the Civil War. The Battle of Shiloh is where we see total warfare and total destruction. Why is we say that this is the first deadliest day battle of the Civil War? Well, look at those numbers. Those numbers are starting to creep up. It is a Union victory in the Battle of Shiloh. The Union casualties, now you have to understand, when we talk about the casualties, we're not talking about dead guys. You're talking about people who were injured who couldn't fight anymore, people who were dead, people who couldn't be found. So you have a couple of things going into what a casualty. So that doesn't mean 13,000 people died. It means 13,047 people were not fighting another day. Union, 13,000. Confederates, 10,600. You would think because of the more casualties that the Confederacy would have won, but it is quite the opposite. The Union actually wins this battle because they have more men to throw at the Confederacy. Next battle we're going to talk about is the Battle of Antietam, September 17th, 1862. The Battle of Antietam is very important. It is a strategic Union victory. The North wins strategically, but look at those casualties. They're just about even, right around 11,500 each. But here's the importance of the Battle of Antietam. Abraham Lincoln was looking for a Union victory to be able to give his Emancipation Proclamation, the proclamation that freed the slaves. That's Antietam. Because the Union won in Antietam, Lincoln was looking for this momentum going forward, gave this Emancipation Proclamation. After this, the North celebrated. They turned their reasoning to fight this war from preserving the Union to now freeing the slaves. Lincoln replaces his general after the Battle of Antietam. He winds up doing it 5 times, and this is the single bloodiest day battle in the whole war. Next battle we're going to cover is the Siege of Vicksburg. What's important about the Siege of Vicksburg in 1863, July of 1863, the Mississippi River. They wanted the Mississippi River. They felt that if they were able to get control of the Mississippi and you have the Atlantic, you can squeeze the Confederacy out. And that was their idea. That's the importance, to control the Mississippi River. This is the siege in which Abraham Lincoln says, I know the guy who's going to lead this army to victory. This is where General Ulysses S. Grant gets placed in charge of the whole Union Army. Again, it is a Union victory. Look at the casualties again. More Union casualties, 10,000 to the Confederate 9,000. What that doesn't include is the 29,000 Confederate soldiers that surrendered from the city of Vicksburg. The next battle we're going to get into right here, the tide of the war turns, the Battle of Gettysburg, July 1st to July 3rd, 1863. The Battle of Gettysburg is a 3-day battle. The importance of it, this is the turning point of the war. This is the point in time where Robert E. Lee starts running and doesn't stop running until he surrenders. This is one of the few times that Robert E. Lee attacked northern states. Most of this fighting was done in the South. So Robert E. Lee attacks. He wants to get Gettysburg so then he can turn on Washington, D.C. However, it doesn't happen. Day 1, Lee gets there with his Confederate army first. However, you have the Union cavalry led by John Buford, General Buford, who holds off this Confederate division, which is crazy, until the next day, or actually until later that day, when John Reynolds and his division comes down and are able to fight. Now these fields, Gettysburg is just a big open field. That's kind of what it is. It's a few different fields together. It's amazing. You should go there to see these battlefields, to think that so many people fought and died in such a small area of land. So you have the highest ranking general, John Reynolds, gets killed the first day. Day 2, you see the most fierce fighting at the Battle of Little Round Top and the wheat field. They said that so many men died in the wheat field that you can actually walk from one side of the wheat field to the other without even stepping on the ground. You would just be stepping on dead bodies. So what you have here, this area is called Devil's Den. There's a guy sitting up behind here. You see that he's dead now. You have all these people that are dead laying in the field. There I am. This is where John Reynolds died. These are what the fields look like at Gettysburg. Now you have to remember, these guys were standing side by side. They were firing into these lands. I have more pictures. Little Round Top and Devil's Den, or the Slaughter's Pen they called it. This is where the big victorious charge of Colonel Chamberlain, they ran out of bullets up on this hill. This is Little Round Top, and they ran a charge down the hill and attacked the Confederates with their bayonets. Very, very popular in Gettysburg history. Here's the top. I took this picture right here, the top of Little Round Top. Down here, this was Devil's Den. This was the Slaughter Pen. So this is how close these guys were fighting. Picture thousands of guys walking up on these ridges. It's pretty crazy. Devil's Den right here. Right behind these rocks here is where the picture of that guy who was shot dead laying there. These are also pictures from Little Round Top. I actually had family who passed away at the top of Little Round Top. Corporal Samuel Sela was shot, mortally wounded, at the top of Little Round Top. So I have a connection to Gettysburg myself. Here's a little round top again. Day 3. Day 3 is a big day. This is the day that the Confederates and Robert E. Lee make a huge strategical error, tactical error. This is a day of Pickett's Charge, where 13,000 Confederate soldiers attack the heart of the Union line and get slaughtered, literally slaughtered. Look at these casualties. Over 51,000 casualties in 3 days of battle. You have the Union, who lost 23,000. The Confederates lost 28,000, which roughly about 10,000 were from Pickett's Charge right there on that last day. 51,000. That's a Union victory. This is what they call the high mark. This is how far in, as the farthest person who got into the Union line. Pickett's Charge. Right here, you see all this red? This was the Confederacy walking across a wide open field. This is that wide open field. The Union Army was standing behind this line, just shooting cannon fire, shooting muskets, killing these guys. Okay? Lincoln gives the Gettysburg Address. He knew how important Gettysburg was, and he dedicates the battlefield and a cemetery at the battlefield. He praises the bravery of the Union soldiers. Okay? He really gives people a reason to continue fighting this war. We also have the Battle of Bentonville. The Battle of Bentonville happens right in our backyard, guys. That's what's important about this. It's right at home here. You have William T. Sherman, who is chasing Joseph Johnston outside of Goldsboro, and he forces them out all the way up to Durham. Now, the important thing about the Battle of Bentonville is actually, you have the North winning this. The Union wins this. They only have 1,500 casualties. The Confederates have 2,600. It's important because it really happens in our backyard. But really, it's this army of Joseph Johnston, this Confederate army. They actually surrender 17 days after the surrender of Robert E. Lee. So technically, the Sherman-Johnston skirmishes battles happen after what we would call the final battle of the Civil War, which is right here, Appomattox Courthouse. April 9th, 1865. Robert E. Lee gets surrounded by General Grant as he's trying to retreat to get some supplies. General Grant and Robert E. Lee meet at Appomattox Courthouse. That's that building right there. It's a small battle right here, but this is where Robert E. Lee surrenders the largest portion of the Army of Northern Virginia. After this, all these generals start surrendering to the Union Army. That's why we call this the final battle of the Civil War. Really, it's the final major one. However, like I said, Joseph Johnston doesn't surrender until 17 days later. So here's just a couple of battles I picked for you that I wanted you to know, important battles. So those are battles of the Civil War.